California. Big Biz Show's on the air. Great to have you along today. 110 million broadcast homes strong. 150 radio stations in 175 countries. Look what we have here. I like that. And suddenly, in the middle of the show, wow, the Day Trader Quattro turns into the, look at the sign. Boom, just like that. Just like that, yeah.
The ouch.
This is 8/10 of my band up there. By the way, that's an original. I wrote that song.
Did you really?
You've been to a show.
Nice.
That's the
yes,
one.
I have. I've been to a couple shows.
That's the one where we turn into, then we go into shout, and then we go into seeing grown-ass people on the floor.
Can I submit an apology real quick
for what?
Before we go any further?
Just because you're on the air?
Yeah. You know how?
By the way, it's yeah.
What?
It's Picnic Table Thursday here at the show. I see they're making. But, I have to tell you, that fits better than it did last year.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So you were shrinking.
Yes.
Then the holidays came. How'd you do?
I expanded a little bit.
Okay.
And now I'm back to shrinking.
I like to call it swollen, Mike. I'm just saying, look at you. You're on. I'm just concerned about your health. I think we're all concerned about your health. Great to have you along today. One of my favorite people in the whole world is standing by here. John Rood, of course, is the CEO of Momentus. They are a publicly traded company under the stock symbol MNTS, and Momentus is a company that launches satellites commercially for other companies. Think about this. This is insane stuff. So before we get to John, go ahead and apologize. What do you apologize?
Well, normally, man, right before we start the show, what do I say? Here we go, right? And today,
it's so lame. I don't know why.
Today he finally admitted. He goes, "I really hate."
It's like scratching a chalkboard. Whatever.
So I got to come up with a new one.
Yeah.
It's right before the Mario Kart race. And you
the Mario Kart race? Hi, 1990 called.
Exactly.
Exactly. Boys in the Hood or movie back.
So I got to come up with something new.
Hey, John Rood joins us via Zoom, and every time we have him on the air, suddenly we get a bazillion emails about what he does. John, great to see you, pal. How are you?
It's great to be with you. Really excited to be on again. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and because of you, the band expanded by 30%. So we got even more. We've decided we're gonna try to play Rocket Man for you next time you're on the air. Hey, listen, for the folks that did not get to hear you on air with us last year, why don't you take us through kind of the elevator pitch of what Momentus is doing? Because it's pretty interesting when you consider the fact that we're in the era now where we are putting satellites into space for other companies. Talk about that for us.
We're in a new era for space, and what we do at Momentus is provide the infrastructure and in-space servicing to enable that new economy. One of the things that you're seeing is that the space economy is growing faster than the one on Earth. Just this week, again, another report, this time by Euroconsult, saying the global space economy grew by 8% last year and is projected to be $737 billion within a decade. So you're seeing a very substantial growth in the total economy. And the other thing that you're seeing is a lot more things being done from space. So today, there's about 5,500 active satellites. Now that's a big increase in recent years. Remember, in the first about 50 years from the first launch of a satellite, we had about 1,000 put in orbit. So 5,500 today in orbit. And the GAO, the Government Accountability Office, estimates there will be 55,000 by 2030.
Yeah.
So you're going to continue to see that. The other thing that's interesting about these satellites is they're getting smaller. And the reason they're getting smaller is the ability to pack a lot more computing, a lot more capability into a smaller form factor has really advanced. You have smaller satellites, and then the cost of sending them to orbit, like shown on this video here that's illustrating a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket, like the one I just saw launch in January 3rd from the Cape Canaveral. They can carry much more payload at very low cost. So according to McKinsey, there's been a 95% reduction in the cost per pound to send something to orbit over the last 20 years. So what you're seeing shown here in this video is that the kind of vehicle we make, this Vigoride vehicle, is intended to essentially be like the connecting flight in space, or the UPS of space, if you will, that will deliver smaller satellites to the precise custom destination they want to get to, and be able to do that for several of them, and also host payloads, meaning keep them attached and operate them for longer periods of time.
Hey, John, I got to ask you, and I asked you this before, but it's a question that keeps coming up from viewers. How big are these satellites? I know there's a range there. Talk about that again for us. So when you're launching your satellite that's got a payload of several other satellites for what we're calling customer satellites, how big are these customer satellites?
Well, our vehicle, we're roughly about 300 kilograms. Think about, 4 feet by 4 feet, roughly.
Okay.
Like a square is a good estimate for our volume. And then the satellites that we're carrying can vary. So the ones that were shown on top there, think about 100 to 200 kilograms, roughly the size of like a large microwave oven that you might see in your home or something like that, or a small refrigerator that you keep your beer in or something like that. On the side.
Both things Mike Costa can relate to very easily.
1,000%.
You knew that was coming.
Looks like the dorm room fridge right there. You got two side by
Well,
side.
Costa looks like the dorm room fridge itself, so let's face it.
The extra large version.
But we're talking we're talking literally manageable pieces of electronics that go out there for let's say a UPS or let's say an Amazon or even any other sort of retailer that wants to keep track of what's happening with their traffic, right?
Yes, and those satellites I would say are kind of mid-class. The very small ones are like the size of say a tennis ball can, or very small, one unit, about 2 kilograms, often the size just a little bigger than like two hockey pucks or something like that taped together. And depending on what you want to do, and there are a lot of different configurations. So for example, on our first mission that Momentus flew in May, one of our customers was from Spain. They're called FOSSA, and what they are doing is Internet of Things connectivity. So their first satellite is kind of about the size of half the size of a tennis ball can, cut in half with deployable solar wings. Their next iterations are going to be larger. We just announced in the last week that they have committed to a follow-on order with us, and their intention is to have hundreds of these very small satellites that work together as a network to provide connectivity to things around the Earth. And there are other people doing this for studies of the environment, or you've seen in the war in Ukraine, so much of the satellite imagery making a big difference in how that conflict is understood and what the respective parties, including in our government, are doing about it.
John, when you've got a payload ready or there's a rocket ready to launch, does somebody send you an email saying, hey, we're a go for November, you guys want on the flight? How do the logistics work?
The way that we sell rides is not that much different than the airlines. If you book further in advance and the terms are right, we can work through those in advance. And so what they do is they'll reach we have some kind of standard pricing and configuration terms, and the industry is settled on a series of things called units, or U, so 3 units, 6 units, 12 units for standard size and configuration. And so if you're a satellite designer or you're a university or what have you, you can design to a standard interface. We can accommodate you. You book a ride, and we will handle most of the logistics for that. We call it mission management, where one of the offerings we give to our customers is you just work on your payload. We'll take care of the rest. We will test it, integrate it, get it ready for launch, transport it to the launch site, all of those things. It's really like taking your package to the UPS store and dropping it off. We'll get it to the right destination. Just in this case, it happens to be in orbit, more than 500 kilometers above our head.
It's a little different, and plus you guys don't wear brown shorts when you take off. What can brown do for you? I can tell you, put some long pants on. By the way, that was a Rusty Nails joke. I just completely stole that. Can I ask you what the backlog is now, and how many of your transport units do you guys have now and in production? Because I'm assuming the more you have, the more clients you can take on.
That's right. We have a backlog of about $45 million that we reported recently.
Wow.
And that's a variety of different customers. Now that'll take place over a longer period of time than just 1 year, of course. And some of those include both firm contracts and option contracts that we report in our backlog. But you are seeing this growth of new entrants come in, and that's the interesting thing to watch. Is different companies coming up with different ideas for how they can take advantage of this. And not just companies, a lot of the large institutions are. So on this mission that we're presently flying, that we launched on January 3rd, and our second spacecraft is in orbit and operating normally, we're carrying a payload from Caltech that is intended to test the ability to collect solar energy in space and transmit that energy wirelessly to Earth to power for electricity generation.
Wow.
And their thought is, hey, let's do this normally solar panels are affected by the weather, rain, clouds. Well, Caltech has said, let's get above the clouds. Let's put the solar arrays in space, and all we have to do is transmit that energy wirelessly to Earth.
This is
So they're
why
gonna demonstrate that.
this is why we want John on every week. John, I smell Emmy. I smell Emmy Award. If you'll notice, thank you, John. John Rood, Momentus Incorporated. They are publicly traded on the stock symbol MNTS. If you'll notice the pattern on Mike's shirt, okay, that's exactly what you see from space as you're going through the flyover states. That's actually this is. If you take a look at this, this is what
Here's
Indiana looks like.
Here's Nebraska. Here's Iowa.
All right, more Biz coming up.